I'm doing this with different software this week as well, so it'll be interesting to get your feedback on how it looks. I'm using the new desktop with a new camera which is connected wirelessly using Android, and that means I can now use the Modwave and Wavestate hardware, so I've got both of those connected now as well. So please give me a mention in the comments, just let me know all the sound is working and everything else, and then we'll be ready to start. There we go. I can see your comments coming in. That's good to know. Right. So welcome to this month's live stream. What I plan to do this month is that I've got this new setup where I've got all the synths live, including the Radius and the MS2000 and even a Roland D110. What I'm going to do is I wanted to kind of get a few suggestions that I got from you guys last month, and those included digital sounds on the Modwave and wave sequencing analog sounds on the Wavestate. I'm also going to give you a preview of some of the synth, some of the sound packs that I've been working on as well. So hopefully I've got lots of stuff to show you. Although my notes haven't synced, but I did go through. I did try and go through all these beforehand, so I can kind of got some stuff to talk about. But here we go. I've got my notes up. Right. So digital sounds. Let's talk digital sounds now. So I've done some examples of Modwave stuff. Hello everybody in the chat. In the past. So what I wanted to do now is talk about the Modwave using for digital sounds, for example this one here, this hybrid one. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start from an init patch, and we're going to create some digital type sounds on there. So we've got the init patch, you can hear the brass. So when it comes to digital sounds, I tend to we'll go with some of the digital wavetables. Wavetables is where you're going to get that digital sounds and file. There are the samples as well, but samples being digital can sound analog, so I want it to sound digital. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go with one of the wavetables I really like called Fold Sweep. So we're going to go to a single oscillator. Here we go. Doesn't sound very excited at the moment, but that is the waveform, and especially if we bring it down lower as well, it's going to sound quite good. So the first thing you do with the digitals is put a bit of movement on it. By default, this wavetable, if I scan through the wavetable, it's got a nice digital sound to it. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to try sweeping that wavetable with the envelope. Let's have a listen to that. I think it would sound best if it swept up. So it started at the top level and then went down. So let's try it. So we're in inverse, don't we? Maybe it's not what I want. Let's try the other way. There we go. So I've got a bit of digital on it now. Now it sounds a bit static, as a static waveform would do. So what I'm going to do that is I'm going to use a bit of stretch modulation with LFO1, quite a bit. Then I'm going to slow that down. Hello Snowmackle, good to see you in the chat there. So I'll slow that down a bit. No, I'm not going to 10th. I'm going to do this 3 minutes. So. Sounds okay. It still sounds quite digital. quite static, doesn't it? But there's a couple of different things we could do with this. We could go over to oscillator B and put a similar waveform, or the same one. Try to tune it apart. Lower it down. And we'll put a bit of movement on that as well. Now let's have a look at the envelopes. We'll go with it. Longer envelope. Sounding pretty good now. So now let's just beef it up with a bit of effects. So there we've got a real digital sound to it. Now what we could do, I'm going to go back to oscillator 2 on there, is maybe give it sort of a vocal quality. So for that there is one that's called AE, the vowel one. There you can hear the vowel. Create a real nice vocal sound to that. Depending on how you have the envelope, you can make it, shift quite quickly. And let's see what the morph would do on that. Morph as it is, I think. But what we could do is use one of these other tricks on the modulators and give it a vintage effect and put it down to a 8-bit style. Interesting. Yes, I get carried away doing these as well, so do let me know if I can get carried away. Now, did you hear that 8? Now that's 8-bit. This is non. So 8-bit is really reducing that quality down to emulate that 8-bit style. That's 12-bit. But I think we'll stick with the 8-bit. It just really sound vintagey and almost like a PPG there. But together. Okay, that's sounding quite good. But what I'm going to do for a bit extra effects, we'll leave those down about there, and then I'm going to, for the controller, I'm going to allocate the X control to oscillator 1, and maybe the Y control to oscillator 2. Some interesting effects using the chaos. So we've got a nice digital sound in there. Now the other thing we could do is we could, instead of using oscillators, the envelope on there, let's just stick it back down here for now. We're going to take the chaos off for now. We could actually probably make it talk if we go to the motion sequencer, and if I hit record, and we'll go lane A, and I'm going to alter the position of that as we're playing the note. think I'll make it more subtle than that though. So that's one thing you can do with it. You can use the motion sequence like that. Or if I take that back off and give it a bit back to the envelope. Just take the envelope down. We could use the position to be modified by the LFO. So we could go for LFO2. And that gives you a few different options as well. So if I go for LFO2, give it quite a high value for now. Go to LFO2, and why don't we try set it to random? It's quite subtle, the random. Hear it on its own, it's a bit low. What I could do with is another camera looking down at the Modwave, couldn't I? But yeah, that's something I need to investigate further, because I'm doing some of this on the Modwave, although you can do everything on the software. Okay, so there we go. So okay, so I'm going to save these so that I'll make them available as a download. So we'll call this August 24. Let's call this demo 1. The great thing about the Modwave and the Wavestate is the library functions. It's really easy to create patches and save those as well. Okay, right. So there's one thing to mention as well. That's not running in free running mode at the moment, so if you run it into free running mode, then all the notes will sync up. But you could achieve the same thing by using the motion sequencer as well, so there's loads of different ways of doing it on the Modwave. But there we go, so there's our first one. Now what we could do is we could take this a step further and look at doing some FM modulation to it as well. So if we don't need to even hear oscillator 1 for this purposes, but what we could do is modify it, and this is going to get quite complex because we've already got complex waveforms, but you could FM this. So it's going to get really complex quite quick, because in FM you're better with a sine or a simple waveform to do that. So maybe we'll look at a different waveform to do that with. So let's just go back to the patch. Right, I wanted to show a couple other interesting waveforms on here as well. One others which I like was the analogical one. There we go. Which, if you apply a bit of movement on that one, it almost sounds analog. But it's got that sort of digital overtone to it. especially as you start to. If I bring a bit of envelope on it as well, let's go to the envelopes. Let's give it a bit of a softer envelope. Dr. Gregory, good to see you in the chat. I'm glad you enjoyed the 2600. I've got a brilliant thing I'll show you later in the show before we go off. I've got a preview of something that's coming, so I'll add it to the desktop so I can share it, but I wanted to show you that as well. So there is 20 more 2600 stuff coming. So we've got a kind of nice digital sound off there. And then maybe some more belly type sound. Another chimeric on it is good. So a little technique I'm going to do now actually is I want a slow attack on oscillator 1 and a fast instant one for the chime. So the envelopes which I've got here, I don't want the slow envelope anymore. I'm going to give that an instant attack, but oscillator 1 I'm going to leave down, but then I'm going to get it to fade in basic with oscillator, with that oscillator there. So let's give it. And then oscillator 2, I'm going to use envelope 2. I think we've got some ads coming. So I think we've got some ads coming in 30 seconds. So the oscillator 2, I'm going to apply. That's it. That is quite a nice bell type wave, that isn't it? Okay, so I've got the bell. I've got the bell sound on there now. I've put a bit of unison mode on it. I actually think this would. I'm going to take that down for a sec. So there's our bell. There's a nice bell sound, but it's not like a DX7 bell. It's an analog type sound. So I like that. Now going back to oscillator 1, I think instead of that harsh sound, it would benefit from a nice softer sound. So we're going to look at another digital waveform, and the DW8000 waveforms are always good. So let's go for the DW8000 and let's try one of these. I'm going to have a slower attack on that oscillator 1. Let's add some movement on there as well. That's it. So that's a nice digital bell sound, but actually, as much as I like the digital sounds, I'll save these so that we've got these for our downloads. Actually, we prefer that with an analog sound, I've got to admit. So, but we can stick with the digital waveform. We'll use the DW8000 waveform and give it a nice sawtooth. So we may want to subtle that down a bit. Maybe take the filter out. And a bit of filter envelope as well, so we hear the sharp attack of the bell and then softened it for the rest of it. Now let's go in a bit like okay, I think that was quite almost done, but I think it would be nice would be a bit of pitch modulation on the LFO. Not too sharp. But what to do on that as well on the pitch, as I'm just going to delay it slightly and fade it in. Demo 3. Okay, so perhaps we'll do one more. So I briefly showed the DW8000 waveforms. The DW8000 waveforms are brilliant. I definitely recommend you look into those because you get some real nice sounds out of that. So do go and check those out. I can give you a quick demo of what I mean. Go to a single oscillator. Choose the DW8000 and you hear a sawtooth and you can hear the different waves. So there's a lot of nice waveforms in there as well. Oh, there's tons in the Modwave. I did mention about FM, so let's stick with that sawtooth wave and we'll stick with the built-in sawtooth wave oscillator 2. So oscillator 2, sawtooth, do some frequency modulation, and as you can hear, and changing the frequency of oscillator 1, even though you can't hear it, it's down, it's modulating it, can make a big difference. There you go, we're into some bell type tones, aren't we? Crazy on it. So straight away, we don't need to restart now. Straight away you can hear that those bell type tones that FM's famous for, and then if I put those envelopes on, let's give it a bit of flag. Chorus. There you can hear that. But then the trick you can do is you don't have to use the full morph all the time. You can turn that morph down and use an envelope or use the mod, but we'll stick with envelope. So we'll use oscillator 2's envelope. So if I wait for a really short attack, we'd have that. So, and as we change oscillator 1's waveform, we'll get more modulation or less modulation. So now it's a sine. So into DX type territories there, and I think I've released those already in the past. I think it's in the digital collection. Let me save those. I have recreated some of the DX7 patches because you can, effectively you've got two oscillators here, which are two operators of an FM. So DX7, 6 operators. You could use it in different combinations, but quite often you would stack 2 up, so 2 and 2. And another 2 maybe to give you sort of a chorus effect. If you've got a DX100 like I've got over there, you've only got 4 operators, so you with the Modwave you've got 2 layers, you can create some 4 operator type DX sounds. So there you go. So thanks Giovanni, good to see you in the chat room. So there's our bell type sound. So we're going to move on to the wave state for the next part. Unless there's any other questions in the comments for me to look at on the Modwave before I flick over to the wave state. So let's save that one. So I'll probably release these sometime tomorrow. So I'll put a link in with the video on this, so you can download these sounds. Okay, so let's go to the wave state. The wave state's over here in front of me, and I've got a key stage set up there. So for the wave state, this is a similar but different synth, isn't it? So it's got some of the samples in there, some of the concepts are the same, but they've got the wave sequencing on there, which is new. So one of the things that someone asked me is, how do you go about creating non-wave sequence sounds, like analog synth type sounds? And actually that's the theme of a collection that I've got coming out in a couple of weeks, where I've been creating some analog string sounds for the wave state, which I'll show you before I finish tonight. But for now, I'm going to go to an init patch, and we'll have a go at creating sort of analog synth type sound on here. So here's our wave state. So we're not going to use wave sequencing for this part. I'm going to change it to a single oscillator. And the trick to doing this, you haven't got what we've just been doing on the Modwave. You can't do wave tables, you can't do sort of the analog style wave modulation. But what you can do is you've got a whole load of samples in there that are analog based, and then you've got analog style filters in there. So you could search for a sawtooth wave and you'll find there's tons of them in there. So here is a 2600 sawtooth, pretty sort of lifeless on its own, but then you can start doing some interesting things with it around the filters. So it sounds just like the Modwave does on an init patch, which is not that dissimilar when we go to a sawtooth wave on there. So that's, you're hearing now, that's the Modwave. That's the wave state. So one is using true oscillators and one is using samples. So we're using samples on here. And if we stick with those samples, then we can do some interesting things with them. So first of all, you could do something like a filter sweep on it as well. So let's take that filter. Take that filter envelope on there. If we go to envelopes, we can see we've got there that I've got the intensity up. We'll take the filter down a bit. There we go. We've got an analog type sound on there. Doesn't sound that much at the moment. What we probably want to do is give it some live to give it that analog feel. So there's a few little tricks you can do for that. Other than wave sequencing, you can do some more interesting stuff as well, but just to keep it basic, I just include a little bit of pitch modulation, a little bit of filter modulation, got a bit of resonance on there, and let's listen to that. Yeah, you can hear that filter. So I'm going to turn that filter speed down. You can hear the pitch modulation on there as well. Let's give it a bit of chorus. And we'll give it a bit of... Now look, we've not done anything with the envelopes, have we? So let's give it a bit of release. And we could slow the envelope down. On the amp, I will leave the amp envelope up, turn the filter down a bit. It gives us that nice sweep. And we could, what quite often we would probably do is fire up another layer and do something slightly differently. So let's go up to another layer. Again, I'm going to go same waveform, the 2600. I used the saw one, didn't I? Let's use the saw up just to be different. But I'm going to pitch it an octave higher and put the tuning out a little bit of LFO on there. Bring the filter down, a bit more resonance. In fact, let's try that now. Turn it on, and I'll stick the effects on as well so it matches the other one. At the high bit, I'm going to bring it a bit slower. Sounding quite good. And then what we could do is I turn that filter down a little bit so it's not quite all the way up. I could add some poly aftertouch to it, which to open the filter up. Maybe with the poly aftertouch we could do a bit of pitch on there. So I'm going to go to poly aftertouch and the pitch LFO. Now it's not very subtle. It's almost getting to that Vangelis territory, and if I lower this octave down, I think it might sound better, but and we can try one of the other waveforms. And what we haven't got into there, if I turn off the other layer and let's change that back to the sawtooth one. I haven't got into any unison mode, which it might sound good if we put a unison. If I scoot over here a second, go lower. And that's the single layer. Dual layer. And I think that sounds pretty analog. Let me know what you think in the comments, but I think that sounds pretty analog. So we'll call that demo 1. And we'll save these as whoops. So there we have it, I think. So there we go. So we've got a bit of a Vangelis type analog sound on there. Now what you could do is we'll do a quick look at the wave sequencing now. I think wave sequencer we do a full special on that one. Really, there's a lot that you can do in there, but there's some interesting things we can do with wave sequencing. You can use it just as a sequencer type effect, or you can use it to modify patches or to create interesting patches. So for example, this one, quickly to show you on here, let's go back to the synth sounds. So we could use it to sort of modify a synth sound. So let me check. Let's go for a waveform. So here, let's go with this 2600 one, and then it can then effectively morph into another waveform. So let's go for something so you can hear it, the square. Let's try that. So you can see at the basic level it's using 1 second, because the timing lane is just that, to go from there to there. If I drag this over now, it will use that 1 second and then use the other shorter one. And then you've got these sort of fade out timers as well. We can crossfade these a bit more. So if we slow these down, you're almost like you're switching between those waves, and it's almost like doing it on a mod wave where you're using the LFO to switch between the waveforms. On here, you're using the timing lane to do the switching of the waveforms. And again, it sounds a bit. If I've just add a couple of effects to it, let's put a couple of detunes, like 3 detune, and spread that stereo out as well. And maybe just change the amp to a bit of a. Change the amp envelope on there a bit more stringy. And then of course you could just go through and it could then morph into something else, and that gives you some nice interesting effects on there. That's just one layer. You've got 4 layers you can play with on there, and that again gives you some interesting ideas on there. Give this the demo 2. You can also do a rhythmic type sequences on there as well, and so for rhythmic type ones, I've got a couple that I can show you. In fact, we can show you from the analog strings collection, which is coming out soon. I think I've got a couple on here, or maybe I did it on the wave. Let's go on the Wavestation ones. So this is the an original patch from the Wavestation. This wave sequence was actually already in the wave state. If you go into the oscillator and the wave sequences and have a look, you can see all the factory ones from the wave station are in here. So this is, let's just play that one. It's a split down on here, I think. So there you can see exactly how they've done that, how Korg did it originally. So it's cycling through those sequences, those sounds, and it sounds great, doesn't it? I do love the Wavestate, but they're all built in there, so you can just pick those off. You can see all the ones that are in here, I think, and then I've made presets by using them and combining with other things as well. So Midnight Run is another good example one. So here you can see it's doing the guitar sounds, but it's also pitch modulation as well, so that's how you get that effect. But I've created some which have got a drum loop as well, so let me find which they are. Okay, I think this one has got some drums in it. Actually, I think this is one of the presets I modified, but you can see what it's doing there. It's doing the, on one it's doing the bass, on the next layer it's doing the hi-hats. And I think this is one I created from scratch. And you can hear 12 string and the acoustic and the R and the gospel sound on there. This one had some drums there. You can see this wave sequence has got kick, hi-hat, kick, hi-hat. And in fact on this one, the bit after touch adds a bit of extra reverb on the drums. Break that down. There you can see the drum kit. Dead simple. It's just playing those sounds. If I go to this layer, there was the synth, which has got an arpeggiator on it. Here you can hear the LFO. Free running LFO kicking in that's controlling that. And then we've got a layer B. It's just alternating those, and then layer A is the piano. Turn it on. So here you can see I'm altering the timing of the piano and controlling the volume level to give it those effects as well. So otherwise it would be. Actually, no, I'm not using those ones. I'm using the timing lane there to alter that piano. But if I was to drag that out, I could choose a different piano type sound. Okay, let's go for the M1 organ. We've got the M1 piano. I think we've got the M1 organ somewhere. So there you go. That's the kind of thing that you can do with it. So I think we'll look at wave sequencing more on a future video, because it's such a complex and powerful thing, and we're not even looking here at all the controllers that we can apply to that. We've got 8 controllers, that real-time controls that we can control this with as well. Now what I wanted to do briefly was to show you now some of the stuff that's coming up on future sound sets. So I'm going to fire up the 2600. I'll just add that to my application. So a streaming application, so it fires up on there. There we go, we should be able to see that. Yes, we can. So Volume 2 for the 2600 is coming out soon, and I can control this via MIDI. I can control this from the Modwave, yeah. So I'm just going to mute the Modwave, and what you're hearing now is some sounds from the 2600. Although I can't hear them. That's good. That's not coming through there, so maybe it's not sharing the audio. Yeah, it is definitely sharing the audio. I can see it. Let's put the other MIDI controller on it. Oh, there we go. There we go. So these are we've got some things like Shining Crazy Diamond, including the we've got synths, and then brass sound. We've got some sequences. And it's any almost like the Pink Floyd type one. That's in coming out on soon, and I've also got an example of using this synth to recreate a famous Elton John track, but I'll leave that one for now. So going back to the Modwave, on the Modwave coming up, I have another analog set. So this is an original patches of analog sounds, some of them recreated in the mini load, which I've got over there. So we've got some of those coming up that I think you're going to like some of these. So some of them are using interesting effects with the drum, or it's a technique for drums. Interesting idea behind this one. Here you can see you can't re-trigger on samples on the Modwave. So how do I get the kick and the snare to do that? I'm using the arpeggiator to generate the repressing of the keys, which re-triggers the samples. And then I'm using the motion sequencer to control the envelope of the snare. So if I had it open all the time, you'd hear them both at the same time, but instead you get this effect. So you can see the envelope there being affected by that. And in fact, separate so you can view the parts out. So that's in the analog section, and as well as some interesting ones like this one key lead. And there's one actually I really liked. And then we've got some like ensemble strings, got power glide, kind of unsettling that, isn't it? That one. That's using portamento, polyportamento. I've got some of this. And this one. I've also got a DW8000, a D1110, that's the Roland device that I just released the sound set for last week, but I've also got volume 2, which is in the works. So you'll see there's lots of interesting synths on there as well. Over on the Wavestate, I've mentioned earlier, I've got an analog strings section coming out, so really making use of those analog techniques, and got some surprisingly nice and warm string sounds out of there. Like a JX 3P strings, Mellotron. even Pink Floyd. Play it lower down. We've got Polyamp to touch on there. We've got some Tangerine Dream style ones. Which does sound very analog, doesn't it? And that's from the using wave sequencing as well. Plus some all these extra ones there. So they'll all be on the dislifestyle.com as a free download. So head over to the dislifestyle.com and you'll see all these downloads are available. And nearly at 10k subscribers, so it'd be great if we could push over that 10k margin. I'd be really pleased to get that far, because that's really been achieved by getting some of these sound sets out on there. So we've got another couple of minutes left, so anybody's got any questions, please put them into the chat now. I can either demonstrate something or you can give me suggestions and comments for future videos. I also got if anybody's got a mini-log, I have actually got some mini-log sounds on the way as well. I have also got I've got the native version of Op6, and I've got a few sounds that I've done for that, so I'd be interested to know from you guys whether there's any interest in that. If it's something you're interested in, then let me know, because I'll certainly look at those. And if you're interested in any specific of my older gear that I've got, like the TX7 up there, there's an RX5, an MS2000 there, then let me know. I've also was given a Korg NX5R as well, so that's a MIDI module, a little MIDI module. So I'm going to be playing with that as well. Not too exciting, those sounds, but they do remind me of my Korg X3 I had a few years ago. So thanks for everybody that's joined us. I really would like to get your comments and feedback, so please put them in. I'm going to hang out here for 5 minutes now while and demonstrate some sounds before we finish. So yeah, thanks for watching this video. We're going to do another one next month as well, so let me know what you'd like to see on future videos, or if there's anything you'd like to talk about. Thanks to everybody put comments in the chat room. Eric, Giovanni, Gregory, Snow Metal. It's great to see you in there. I really do like getting the community side of this and getting us Modwave and synth fans together. I always want to get your feedback, so anything else you wanted to talk about or anything, let me know. So I'm going to finish off now. I'll give it a couple of minutes, but I'm just going to play some of the analog sounds that I've been talking about, and I'll give you a demo of some of those, and I hope to see you on the next video. Thanks for watching.